Guess who's back in the house? Happy Thursday, guys. I hope that you're having a wonderful Thursday evening. I just watched um, season 11 reunion episode of RuPaul's Drag Race filmed at the Orpheum Theater in downtown LA, and I have a few thoughts. I feel like this episode was sponsored by Ryan Murphy's Feuds, which the latest season should be out soon. If you haven't seen the show, it's almost like American Horror Story, but it focuses on iconic feuds. And the first season featured Betty Davis and Crawford, which I had no idea that they were rivals in their heyday of old Hollywood. And I feel like this episode was really trying to examine the many feuds in season 11. And so it was kind of like Raja against Scarlet and Eevee, Silky against Eevee, weirdly Kahana against Mercedes, Ariel Wiggate with Raja, of course, and it felt like there was something missing from this episode. Like there wasn't a nice balance between the investigation of these feuds versus how drag is able to show the LGBT community to the masses on VH1 and highlight kind of like drag is like alternative culture and how we should really kind of like celebrate that, where I feel like there's so much kind of like polarization that this show creates within the fandom, but just how people outside of the community really embrace this TV show. And so we needed more balance. And so we kind of like start off with Vanji, the meme queen of season 10 and now of season 11. And Rue states that kind of like Vanji looks somehow different, that Vanji looks like that she's had some fillers in her face. And I have noticed in recent interviews that Vanji is doing something differently with her makeup, that she's going for kind of like a Courtney Act makeup routine where it's softer, not really kind of like defining the cheekbones to look more feminine, but to kind of like wash out the face. And so I have noticed, and also kind of like a lighter foundation as well. And so Vanji talks about just her experience on season 11 versus season 10 and the iconic silhouette of the swimsuit, and trying to really kind of like move away the narrative with the flower swimsuit and kind of like showing off her figure, which is accentuated by the swimsuits. And so then RuPaul asked about Brangie, Brooklyn and Vanjie's relationship, and if they're still together. And unfortunately, they are not together, which is really sad. They had very different schedules, and they weren't able to kind of like work things out. So I've never watched the Bachelor series or even the Bachelorette, and I kind of like know why people would be interested in kind of like two people getting together on this scripted reality show. You root for romance. You root for two strangers coming together and finding the love of their lives. And I think for everyone that watched the show, that they wanted to see this perfect union created, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't. And so then we move on to kind of like Raja, and Raja explaining her feud with Eevee, and she's cut off very quickly by Scarlet, and I kind of like felt that Raja was going to get the Vixen treatment, and how the Vixen wasn't able to really explain herself um, during the taping of her season, on social media and then at the reunion, because her narrative has been created by the commentary of other people. And so I'm glad that it really didn't go in that direction, that Raja was really able to say that she needed to talk to someone outside of the workroom, and she didn't want to show vulnerability, and that she was hurting, and she would have loved to have talked to someone back home to just kind of like gather herself and be able to highlight her personality, as well as highlight who is Raja the drag queen. So I love that moment. I feel like some of the queens could really take a note from like old Hollywood. And we had this cute moment later in the show to talk about Wiggate, when Ariel forgot her wigs in the workroom, and then when she came back for the makeover challenge, that she was talking about how she wanted these wigs back, and how the one wig that she really wanted ended up in Raja's suitcase. And so Rue brings this up, and Raja says that she did take the wig, and she actually performed in that wig, and I thought that was hilarious. But one thing, because there was so much buildup with that moment, the tension between Raja and Ariel. Raja let me down, and she actually had the wig by her side, and she threw it at Ariel. But it would have been such a gag if she would have gift wrapped it, or presented it in a way that was comedic genius. Like, I don't know, had like a miniature doll of her created, and the doll was wearing the hair. But it's just another way that fans of the show can like really go after her and tear her down. And so I wish the queens would understand comedic genius. Some of them really need to watch the movies that Rue grew up with and loved, just to understand how to seize the moment. And that's one thing that I kind of like don't like about the queens who are eliminated early in the season. Vanji did it right her last season. She capitalized off of her moment, and I was really let down by Kahana. The one moment that she had to speak, she kind of like attacked Mercedes. Mercedes is really one of the most beloved contestants on the show, and Mercedes had this beautiful moment where she was just talking about all of the love that she's received from the fans and the world for being the first proud Muslim drag queen on the show. And then Kahana basically tried to take away from that moment, and that was her moment to really kind of like get her extra 15 seconds of limelight. And coming from kind of like the Montrese family, I think you would understand the importance of timing. Learn how to make the most of your time. And then we we get to Plastique and Angeria. And I was really shocked that Plastique said that kind of like Angeria had instigated all of the instances where people came after her in the workroom. And again, this is another Black queen whose story is being narrated by another character on the show. And one thing that's kind of confusing about me is that, or confusing for me, is that Angeria has been such a strong competitor throughout the show. Actually, from kind of like the promo, her workroom entrance look, I really didn't think that she would last, but she has really killed it during this season. But we get so little of her, and Angeria almost disappeared during the reunion. I think she had one of the best looks. Her and Brooklyn had the best looks, and it's weird. And so there was a even like cringe-worthy moment where Angeria is trying to explain what happened with kind of like Wiggate, and then kind of like Raja going to speak to Plastique about the day that Alyssa Edwards came. Rue said that you're now my child, and her boyfriend gave her a video message during Untucked. And it made it seem as if kind of like Angeria was kind of like starting shit. And actually Rupaul actually said that you were like I think it was Rupaul said that to Angeria. Rupaul said that somebody was starting shit, and I thought it was hilarious because like Rue was really messy during this season and was really kind of like dropping clues and hints and just kind of like coming out and giving people kind of like these delicious morsels to kind of like tear apart and claw at, to kind of like really know what the other girls were saying about them behind their back. And then at one point, Rue actually cut off Angeria when she was trying to explain herself with the Plastique situation. And I just wish that sometimes there was like better editing, because sometimes Rue comes off as kind of like very distant and cold, and kind of like unaware of kind of like what's going on with the contestants. And it's almost kind of like it gives lighter fuel to some people in the fandom who would love to see Rue removed from the show. And then we have the feud to end all feuds of the season. Eevee versus Silky. And Silky is really able to explain her frustrations with Eevee, and Eevee is able to explain her frustrations with Silky. And there was just kind of like a complete misunderstanding on both sides, and I'm glad they were able to clear that up, because Eevee and Silky are two of my favorite contestants of this season. And like I said in a previous video, that I was so proud of Silky for admitting that she was wrong for not forgiving Eevee. And I wish kind of like, especially Raja and Silky would have known that Eevee was very critical because she wanted them to do well and to succeed in the competition. And unfortunately, they just couldn't see that. And then there's an interesting moment where Rue says that Silky and Eevee are two of the most fascinating contestants in all of Drag Race history. So I hope that they really understand that they really are. Um, they are just phenomenal contestants, and I could watch both of them all day long. And then um, Nina West has a great moment. One where there's a video message played by AOC after Nina's elimination, where AOC basically states that she can't wait to see more from Nina after the competition. Nina, to me, is the Latrice Royale of this season, where people just gravitate toward her light and her vulnerability, um, and her ability um, to not be defeated, but to take everything that she has learned and has been given and to apply it to the challenge, and to actually take critique on the runway and try to um, really learn from it and elevate her drag. And so, and also Nina was able to really take kind of like what happened after she was eliminated. Rihanna sent her a DM, and she was able to say that kind of like with people like AOC, Rihanna reaching out to her, um, and those people touching millions of people around the world, that she was humbled because of the platform that RuPaul created for them. Like, I don't think some of the fans realize, especially some of the younger fans realize just how shocking it is that a drag show is on VH1, and we get to see people from the LGBTQ community on such a mainstream platform. And so it's unfortunate that some of the fans really kind of like attack the queens um, during the seasons. And then we get more about kind of like Wiggate, which I think at this point doesn't need to be addressed. Um, Rue actually comes after Ariel and says that it's kind of like hypocritical that you she came into the workroom and stated that she did not leave the wigs for anyone, but then she tweeted that she left the wigs for Plastique and for Silky. And so Ariel got mud in her face at that point. Um, and then there was the reading challenge, and the library was open. I wish kind of like the earlier girls, like not Silky, Soju disappeared, Mercedes really disappeared, even Sugar disappeared during this, and she actually was on longer. Then like Kahana and like Sugar really disappeared from this. And so I'm like, if I was on the show and I knew that I left early on, I would come to the reunion with guns blazing and figure out how can I get the most airtime out of this. Of all people, Honey Davenport, actually that sounded kind of shady. Honey, I've actually have loved her post taping, and she has really surprised me. She's extremely intelligent, extremely witty and is able to kind of like, she understands kind of like how to really create a name for herself post taping. And so she had the best read against Angeria. She said, Angeria, that ass is magical. It reminds me of a genie's lamp. It's cold, dark, and when men rub it, they wish for something better. Mic drop. That was hilarious. No one else could top that. And so next week, we have the finale, which was also taped at the Orpheum in downtown LA. And I hate that I was not there. Next year, I'm definitely going. I really want to go to the taping just to experience the beauty and the chaos of taping the finale. So this ends my trade review for the Reunited episode. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think about the earlier queens kind of like disappearing during the taping? Who do you think shined the brightest doing this? What did you think of all of the feuds being under the microscope? And if this is your first time watching a video, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe. This channel features drag race reviews, pride videos, and I'm doing more interviews in the works. I just need to kind of like get a new camera, and so there's a lot more in store for this channel. And please come back. You will love the content. So have a wonderful night. Besos.